Hi, and welcome to another 5-minute book review. Today's topic is The Undiscovered Self by C.G. Jung, or Carl Gustav Jung. Carl Gustav Jung, for those of you who don't know, was a 20th century psychiatrist and smart guy. He was very famous. Um, he probably wrote at least a book a year his entire adult life, and he lived well into his 80s. He died in 1961, and he has a huge volume of work. I've actually been reading his work for many, many years. I ran across something called the Portable Jung many years ago, which was a compendium of his work, sort of sampler of his work through the years. And I found the earlier stuff that he wrote, which was basically for other psychiatrists of the time, which was the early 20th century when he started working as a psychiatrist, as being pretty dense. It was filled with a lot of technical jargon, medical jargon of that time, words like or phrases like dementia praecox, which I don't believe they even use anymore. And but his later works were more geared towards the layman. He still expected you to be a relatively um, uh, intelligent, functioning adult, but other than that, and he was as much a social commentator, I believe, as a psychiatrist. And his work is fascinating. Of course, his most famous stuff is for archetypes, and he's also famous for working with Sigmund Freud, who is arguably the most well-known name in 20th century psychology. And of course, with a body of work like that, we're covering a large area, which we can't cover in 5 minutes. The undiscovered stuff, I'll just read you what it says on the back here. One of the world's greatest psychiatrists reveals how to embrace our own humanity and resist the pressures of an ever changing world. Now, just to let you know, he does all this in 112 pages in my little soft cover copy here. So it's pretty impressive just for that. It says, in this challenging and provocative work, Dr. Carl Jung, one of history's great minds, argues that civilization's future depends on our ability as individuals to resist the collective forces of society. Only by gaining an awareness and understanding of one's unconscious mind and true inner nature, the undiscovered self, can we as individuals acquire the self knowledge that is antithetical to ideological fanaticism. But this requires that we face our fear of the duality of the human psyche, the existence of good and the capacity for evil in every individual. In this seminal work, Jung compellingly argues that only then can we begin to cope with the dangers posed by mass society, the sum total of individuals, and resist the potential threats posed by those in power. A passionate plea for individual integrity. That's the New York Times book review. This book was written in 1957. For me, for someone who's been reading Jung for many years and trying to understand him, he was a lot smarter than I was. Um, this seems to sum up a lot of what he was talking about. If I'd run across this book many years ago, I might not have read anything else, but I might have decided I know as much as I need to know about Jung's work. That's not fair, of course, but it would be a good way to start. So this might be a good place for people to start. I used to recommend the Portable Jung, which is the subject of another 5-minute book review, but this one is actually very, very impressive. I only ran across it recently, read it recently. This book was first published in 1957. Remember, Jung died in 1961. But just reading the first chapter, he could be talking about social conditions today. It's amazing how prescient he was about the future. This fellow really was a very intelligent gentleman. Uh, I highly recommend the book. I'm not going to go into more of the details, although I will go through the quickly review the chapters. Chapter 1, the plight of the individual in modern society. Then we have religion as the counterbalance to mass-mindedness, the position of the West on the question of religion, the individual's understanding of himself, the philosophic and psychological approach to life, self-knowledge, and finally, Chapter 7, the meaning of self-knowledge. Highly recommended book. I hope you enjoy it. Still available online. Various sellers. You can find it online. Just to type in the Undiscovered Self purchase or something like that in Google search, and you'll soon find it. What else can I say about this book? I prefer books to digital copies. Digital copies can be erased or altered, but once you've got a book, unless they break into your house, steal your book, and burn it, you always have it to refer to. So that's just my personal preference. But in any case, good luck and happy reading.